Okay, here we are, Wild Blue Yonder. Gonna try my next campaign. I'm jumping to the Stalingrad Airlift. It's not the next one in terms of complexity, but it's the first of the progressive campaigns that's got any that's next in line in complexity. If I'm really excited, I may do one that has an operation included in the campaign, but for this one, I'm gonna simply follow what there is here. And it's fairly simple. It's got a campaign track, and the Soviet goal is to get to Stalingrad surrenders. The German goal, Stalingrad relieved. I don't think there's a time limit to this. You're going to be flying 2 missions, a strike and supply, each week, plus an extra ground force mission when an offensive event occurs. For each mission, the players get to choose one resource and assign the aircraft secretly before revealing them. The number of aircraft of the same type in a mission cannot exceed the number supplied in the game. The aircraft cannot participate in more than 1 mission per week. So I'm going to have a pool of airplanes that are available to me, and the grayed out ones here are reinforcements. I'll mark those off first. Basically, it's an indication that, hey, if they get killed, it's an indication that I won't have them available anymore. The numbers here, the first, if there's 2 numbers, well, if there's only 1 number, it's the number of those planes that you're allowed to fly any given week. And some of these scenarios have weather involvement in them. I don't think this one does. If there's 2 numbers, the lower valued number to the left is the maximum number that you're allowed to fly during any given mission. And we have some special cases that happen. Quarter opened, for example. I'll increase the amount of Axis cargo points delivered per week by 6. What does that mean? I don't know. We haven't looked at the airlift yet. Some of these others, near airfields overrun, increase the air transport mission base duration up to 9 turns. But there's a resource available, a Focke-Wulf 200C-4. That may mean 4 of them, I'm not sure. Axis single-engine fighters have to conduct a fuel disengagement at the end of the 4th turn in the supply phase. As far as I'm concerned, that's going to be covering the fuel rules, so I'm not going to use that option. That may just be too much of a pain to cope with in general, although it's necessary in some of these campaigns. Pitomnik overrun has a special rule as well. Same as for the near airfields overrun, but if it's snow or fog, you draw a card after an air transport mission equaling the destroyed, in addition to whatever additional results there are, regular results there are. Those, I'm assuming, are explained here. We're going to have to look at this. Gumrak overrun, same as Pitomnik overrun, also with supply missions, are airdrop instead of air transport, which means I use a different mechanism for getting them there, and I think that they may be vulnerable to flak and whatnot. Let's take a look at this. I've got this progress marker here. I haven't looked at this. I expect the rules to give me stuff, not something here. So, by the way, one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I'm doing it before I get to DAC, I started playing the compass training scenario for DAC. And man, that game is unforgiving. I don't remember the OCS being as painful. I was hoping to kind of get the flow of the game down a little better. Maybe I'm just getting old and cranky and stupider, but I fucked up one of sort of the cardinal rules in a campaign or whatnot. But in the training scenario, basically, I ran out of supply with my Brits because I used artillery. And I forget, you're never supposed to use artillery in that game. But they simply do not have enough supplies to be able to use their artillery in that training scenario. And that's a hard thing to learn. And, Sure, it's great to be reminded of that, but I really wanted to get into the pattern of the fighting and whatnot. I may try. I may just flood them with some more supplies and try to do another turn or so. But I don't know. I've been screwing up. Okay, the sequence of play. You draw an action card to determine the week's weather. All right. I haven't shuffled these cards. We're going to do that. We got a red bordered card. It is a maneuver card. That's going to be snow. We've got bad weather. Does that help? Ooh. I'll put this out to remind me. Just to remember that there's snow. Okay. After week 2, draw an action card to determine the week's event. And we do something based on the card number. And these are going to be off of here. Where do we get them? Oh, here we go. Snow is going to be German aircraft, no more than 8 are available. Soviet, no more than 8 are available. I'll fill out the sheets at some point soon. Draw an action card for the week's strike mission. I don't know. I don't know which side is doing which missions here. We shall learn. Okay. Weekly strike mission. Card number 104. 104 says we're going to be doing, it could go either way. A Soviet strike on an airfield. Now this also would be the same table we'd use for the events. I didn't see that before, but that's great. Okay. And then we'll be flying a strike mission and then the supply mission. And we're allowed to assign aircraft out of the initial forces and then assign a resource. Now here's what's weird for me, and I may have to look for things. So there's a bunch of resources here. I'm assuming Winter Gewitter and Saturn are going to be events that happen here. I see Winter Gewitter is. I do not see Saturn. Huh. How about that? I wonder what causes Saturn. Mali Saturn. Okay, that's over on the events thing, but it's not on this list. This is all very weird. Soviet Offensive 4. Treat first occurrence as Mali Saturn, treat second occurrence as Koltso. So my guess is, while we're in the Soviet offensive, we might be getting Saturn, and we have additional resources available for both sides. And when we get to Koltso, we just have Soviet additional planes. Okay. That makes sense. Kind of. Okay. What am I? I'm going to have to look at the campaign rules because I do not understand something here, which is the number of planes at the beginning of each day or week, the weather table, to get the weather, and the number of aircraft each time can assign to missions that day or week. Within the limits described, you can assign aircraft or missions. Okay, yeah. So over the course of the entire week, I'm only going to be able to launch 8 planes from each side. And remember, I got to do 2 different missions in that week. And if there was an offensive, there would be a third mission, right? I'm not so sure. Where did I see that? I thought there was a third kind of mission. I seem to remember saying something like that, didn't I? action card to determine the strike. Fly a strike mission. Each player assigns aircraft and may choose one resource. Yeah, so here's the thing. I can choose one resource. I got a whole lot of choices. But what I was wondering is, what is my restriction on my resources here? So I have assigning aircraft, which is off my pool. But I do not see resources here. And maybe there's something like there was in that other situation where, you know, somebody was able to point me to a rule that told me, hey, you are allowed to use each resource once, and that's the which I knew, but that is the number of scenarios there are in a land campaign, but I'm not seeing this. I'm gonna have to pause and look. The thing is, I read through the progressive campaigns again because it's been a long time, and I read through the Stalingrad rules. I didn't look at this card and didn't try to figure anything out because once you start fiddling around with components, you're kind of playing the game at that point, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not somebody who just zones out on, the charts and figures out what my plan is before I start moving some pieces around, right? That's just not me. But I didn't see anything mentioned about resources, and I kind of had the feeling that depending on the mission that I got, I would get resources that way, but that's not how resources worked in the land campaign, right? I had a set of resources that I could assign to any of the missions. And I get the feeling that I'm going to be crossing these out. Does it say anything? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. Conducting missions. It's over here. You can choose one resource and assign aircraft secretly. The number of aircraft in the same type cannot exceed. Aircraft may not participate in more than one per week. Strike mission. Supply mission. You get to see on fog or snow whether or not planes that survived an air transport mission die. Airdrop mission, cargo points, that's how much they can carry, which I assume affects the points that move things. But what I don't see here, nor here, is anything that tells me the limitation on my resources. Can I just keep picking the same fucking resource each time? That wouldn't make a lot of sense, would it? I mean, for example, here I'm getting 9 BF-109s, or 4 of them. That's a pretty nice pool of planes. Why would I take that? Well, why would I choose a smaller number of planes or something like that? Why would I ever take clouds over target instead of a lot of firepower? I don't know. I'm not sure who it's a benefit for to have clouds over the target, by the way. We saw the attacker being able to use the clouds to slip away in a way that wasn't terribly useful, but I don't know if that's this, right? This has clouds over target, which we'd want to look up. Draw one action card at the start of the over target phase. If a blue border card is drawn, vitals become directs, directs become hits, hits become misses, and target flak is reduced by 1. So it reduces the effect for everyone. It's not really particularly good for anyone, although I guess it's better for the defender overall. It's not the clouds counter that I kind of expected it to come down to. So I don't know. Once again, I have to go looking for what resources might be, and it's like so hard to fucking get one of these campaigns running, right? It feels like it should just be a really simple thing that you're just pulling out a card, you know what to do and everything, but it's not on the card. It's not in the rules where I'm expecting to find it. So what do? Well, I read all the rules again? Great. Not a good design. I seem to remember, though, that even in the original game, I didn't deal with the rules for the campaign at all. We both knew the dogfighting rules, but my buddy had a hard fucking time figuring out how to get the campaign running. You know, and I think we played something like the Rommel attacks or whatever, and we only played like 1 or 2 campaigns max. Part of that is because I do not like not understanding what's going on, and I didn't know what was going on, right? I wasn't told the rules beforehand, and he barely knew them. And, that's really a horrible, horrible type of situation as far as I'm concerned, which is what we're facing here, right? Except that I'm facing it alone instead of inflicting it on anybody who is trying to play with me. You're trying to watch. It's not as frustrating, I can swear to you. The one place I remember seeing resources. At the beginning of each day or week, the side listed first on the performance draws it actually... No. An aircraft assigned by resources do not count against the mission daily, weekly limits and are not checked off if lost. If resource and roster aircrafts at the same time are present, consider the resource aircraft to be lost or damaged first. That's the only thing I remember seeing about resources. Now, in this whole section, I ignore the Battle of Britain. That's not part of this, right? We have resources here. Each player may secretly choose 1 resource. That's within the mission itself. So maybe there's some general rule about resources. There's nothing special here. We have it here, right? Each player assigns aircraft and may choose 1 resource. So maybe there's some general rule about resources, and maybe that's the rule I looked at earlier and was forced to look at, but I don't know. And again, this is so frustrating, and honestly, I'm almost ready to give up simply because fighting out these dogfights, flying the missions and everything, it's just not a lot of fun solo. It really isn't. I'm just old and cranky. Skim through the first part of the rules, getting to campaign missions. It may be here, but there's no rules on resources before this. Like no specific rule on no section on resources. Just to show you how fucking bad it's laid out. I thought this was going to be longer. I look over the campaign section and there's nothing there either, right? It tells me the mission itself, the target battle phase, the over target. Now, where the fuck were the resources listed before in the length of campaign? That's a question. Campaign length. Yeah, that's on land campaigns though, which is not what we're dealing with. We got resources here. We got a rule on resources. This is under land campaigns. Here they say each resource can only be used once per campaign. That's very clear. But it's under land campaigns. This is not a land campaign. Right? I should be able to completely ignore all the rules on land campaigns. Get past operations, ignore all the rules on operations. Is there anything about resources there? There is not. Go to progressive, and there are no rules on resources on progressive. The only thing I can really come to is that I use the land campaign rules, not the general campaign rules, for resources. Now, we've got that divided up here. I'm probably going to want to use my resources early because the goal is to move this marker around. But I guess I just mark them off and they're one use only over the course of a campaign. Okay, that's what we've decided. So, what was the weekly strike mission? It was wow. Something. We figured something out here. It was snow. We drew something and we got something and we don't remember what the fuck it is. Right? We got Soviet airfield. Soviets hitting an airfield. Let's take a look at what that might mean. We'll look for an airfield. Sector air base, you'd think that would be close to airfield. Sort of. Okay. And they don't give you the number of the card that you want to look for, which would be a useful thing. So we're hitting this. We've got area flak of 1, target flak of 3. We're able to strafe. And we really need to do a fair amount of damage points to get some victory points off this. Alright, now let's consider what these are. What do we have? We have braving the flak. We gotta look them all up. One fighter unit may choose to go over target, as may any fighters engaged with it. That's not useful. I can do that anyway, because I can strafe. At least that's the way I read it. Okay. Clouds over target. That might be useful. Reduce the chance of hitting it. Maybe. I don't know. Experienced air crews. Treat all unskilled pilots as having the P. All mission and resource can carry bombs in or air-to-ground rockets. That feels like I probably shouldn't waste that on a mission that I'm defending. Flak guns. Increase target flak by 1 if you're defending. Okay, so this is interesting. Let's take a look at what my different choices are. Soviet airfield can produce a decent amount of victory points. What else can the Soviets hit? Ground forces or supply depot? We know ground forces creates butt kiss for points. But supply depot is not as powerful. So here's the thing. Here's where you have to balance it out, right? So direct and vitals are 2 and 3 points each. If I can get up to 8 points, I can get 10 victory points for it. But here, there's higher points for the hits on a supply depot, but the overall victory points is less. Flak sounds appealing. I may grab a flak. Keep looking. Others are get more planes. More planes is nice, but why don't we get a flak? Okay. I don't know what it's going to cost me to do the other mission, the supply mission. So I think I'm probably going to use no more than half my planes. Maybe we should look and see what a supply mission involves. Again, this is the kind of stuff, you know, everything is so individual per mission that we have to kind of look and find everything and understand everything. Okay, we failed. We failed in flipping through the rules to find what we wanted. So we do it again. Striking mission targets. That's about bombing. Flak is about flak. Campaign missions. Okay, we did not hit this. Wow, this sucks. Alright, we're going to turn the camera off again, and I'm going to read the rules again. Yet another goddamn time. You know, basically skimming through, doing what I did, but in a little bit more detail to try to find where the fuck the rules are for a supply mission. Remember, and I'm getting caught here somewhere, something in some of the special rules said increase air transport mission base duration. Do we have any of those? Because we don't have that under the normal, right? We have strikes. We have a striking a supply depot. We have nothing That's an air transport mission. Somewhere it may tell us that a supply mission is either an air transport, which I have a card for here. For cargo points that survive, you get points. Yeah, that's not terribly useful. Or airdrop. That's what I think it is. I expect to see that somewhere. I don't remember seeing it. When they talk about supply mission, do we have it here? Two missions, strike and supply, plus an extra ground... Oh, here it is. An extra ground forces mission when an offensive event occurs. Okay, an extra ground forces mission. Doesn't tell me who I hit, right? I look at these offensives. Let's look again. A Soviet offensive. Plus 6 Soviet PE-2 to aircraft available. Soviet offensive. I do the first one as Mali Salar and the second one as Koltsow. And they say as Soviet offensive. There's nothing on here about Soviet offensive. There's nothing in here about Soviet offensive. Is that a kind of mission? I highly doubt it. This is fucking annoying. Now here, it doesn't talk about sticking the offensive in. It doesn't give you much rules. I mean, the rules for these campaigns are just absolute fucking shit. It's not a fair defense if you look at like 8th Air Force and say, well, the rules were shit back then, so they just copied them over or something. Yeah, the amount of time they had to develop this thing, put it out and everything, the things that they've learned, the feedback that they've gotten from people saying, wow, the campaign rules are absolute shit. Nobody plays them because they suck. The rules suck. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the resources, the only rule on resources that I can find is under land campaigns. This is not a land campaign. That's problematic. The fact that I can't find a definition for a Soviet offensive on this card as to what it means, right? Here, what it says is I do an additional ground attack, right? I'm assuming it's a Soviet ground attack on the Germans, if forced to, but you know, because it's going to be an attack on the ground forces, right? But damn it, you know, you should spell that out, right? Anything not spelled out that I'm assuming. Just fuck it. I'm not going to look everything. I'm not going to keep trying to look for something that I think actually just isn't there. I'm assuming from what I saw that I do air transport missions. No flak, no problems, right? When I'm going in, airdrops will have those. When I'm going in on this supply mission, that's what I do. Why? Well, because somewhere it said... stuff like this, increase air transport mission. Unfortunately, air transport mission goes there at 6. I don't remember seeing rules on that, but I also haven't looked for them. Unlike these other things that I'm bragging on, I've looked pretty extensively and can't find the shit. I can't be sure. There may be somewhere that it directs me to use this for the air transport mission. However, the airdrop, so if I look at this, what the fuck does it tell me? It doesn't tell me the length of time that I have to get to missions, right? But that is defined elsewhere, correct? Probably under land campaigns, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Campaign missions. Target bound. Okay, target bound phase. Doesn't tell me how long, but here I think it does. Okay. Air transport and dogfight have a single number on the turns column on the mission target matrix. Oh, do they? Really now? What do we got on the other side of this? Okay. Let's take a look here. Take a look here. We did the Rommel attacks. This had a nice little mission table. Maybe it's on this sheet of paper. It's had a nice little mission table. And we look up the mission. It gets us a number. We look that up. It tells us what it's doing, what aircraft we get, and how many turns in each direction. Perfect. That works with the land campaign. This is not under the land campaign rules, by the way. This is under the general campaign mission rules. I got nothing like that here. Nothing like it. I also don't know what this is. Okay, we take the success level, I guess, and we get how many in each direction we get. But what we don't have is a distance. A distance to where we go. Now, I think this one was actually published in like a C3I or something like that, because there was no, as far as I'm aware, there was no like 8th Air Force for Russia, you know? So, and this is, you know, some designer I don't know. They may have just lifted what they had of that. And again, not spent the time. I mean, this game was in fucking development for like 10 years. Not spent the time cleaning up the stuff that they had and just kind of threw it together. And, you know, it's one thing when it comes as an add-on to a C3I or whatever, to expect a little different quality than a published boxed game. Not a hell of a lot. Somebody should still be looking at it and, you know, developing the scenarios for it. But, you know, it helps give you an idea of what probably is in C3I in that case, right? Although, to be honest, I used some of the SPQR scenarios from C3I, and they seemed fine. They might have been a little bit fuzzier than normal, but I don't know. But I am not seeing a goddamn thing about what my distance is going to be. Right? So here it says increase air transport mission base duration to 9 turns. Well, what does that mean? Because, do they tell me here? They do not. These should be campaign specific. It actually almost feels like they cut important roles. Who knows? But I am not seeing a damn thing here that tells me how long. Wait. Okay, we got a hint. Combining this rule with this, air transport mission duration +3. So, if the air transport mission is now 9 turns, it would have been 6. Hey, that's fine. Air transport, we have the length for it. That's not the one we have a problem with. The one we have a problem with is, what were we looking for? Airfield. The airfield target. Is there a default? I don't know. Wasn't there a gas roll somewhere in here? Access single conduct a fuel disengagement at the end of the fourth turn. Huh. See here, they spell it out. They've got it right. They didn't do it here. And is there a default which is go to 1613? I don't know. Let me go look that up. But you can see I'm having a fucking miserable time trying to get this thing started. So I was in the rule that should say it. And air transport and dogfight, blah, blah, blah. Great. We understand that. For all other missions, each target will have two numbers separated by a slash in the terms column. Uh-huh. It's not here. So sorry. Just not there. I can make one up. There is nothing that relates to some kind of default or whatever. Just nothing. And I'm about ready to just quit. Because I'm getting fucking sick of this. And I don't want to play. I mean, like I said, the game itself, the mechanisms involved in everything, the dogfights are fun. The missions could be a nice framework around them. They don't work the way I would want them to, although these progressive campaigns kind of do a little bit more, where I have at least specific planes, but I'm not tracking the crews and the pilots and whatnot, right? I don't have certain specific people that are assigned to the planes doing various things each week. I'm just going to be rolling on those stupid tables again for that. People aren't going to gain experience or anything like that. And it just doesn't seem worth the work for the, hey, let's spend time looking up what it's like to hit a specific type of target each time. There's something cool about the allocation of resources and everything. There is still something neat about that. But it's just so, it's handled in such a fucking half-assed manner that I just don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm stopping for tonight. And I'll fuck around with DAC again during the daylight. Probably flush another load of supply in for the Brits and see if I can do anything better. But they have a hard fucking job in that because they just don't have enough trucks. And maybe I come back and do this, maybe I don't. Either way, this video is going up the way it is because I think it's important to be able to see how fucking horrible the campaign rules are. They're just awful. Are they all awful? Maybe not, Let's look. Land campaigns. This is a big one, but not a progressive. It's another big land campaign. I think a land campaign. This is an operation, which I haven't really talked about. This one actually plays in as part of one of these. See, Battle of Britain, really complex. Why we stayed away from it. Here's another progressive, Kursk, and the Schweinfurt raids, I think, is an operation. Okay, Kursk is another one of these. Let's take a look. What's it like? Yeah, it looks like they did the same damn thing. They did not put any lengths on here. So I am thinking that they just fucked up. And maybe there's an errata or something. But it could just be that these progressive campaigns are out of the question. Like, they're just not. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Mission target. No distance. All kind of complexity in the mission table. The land campaigns have a turn limit written on all of them. These progressive campaigns do not. And what's really weird, did we find the Kursk one? Is that on the other side of this? Oh, this is Barbarossa. Okay. Let's look again. Let's look for the Kursk one. Here's the Kursk one, right. Yeah, this didn't have it either. But what's really weird is optional reserves depleted, right? Over here. Oh no, that's not in Kursk. That's in the Battle of Britain, which I think was a land campaign. No, Battle of Britain's progressive. Doesn't have a track. Does have a track. Doesn't have lengths on these. But guess what? When we were looking over here, in the rules, as opposed to anywhere else, we have this lift fault 5 strike, which gives me the amount of turns. What about some of this stuff? I think these are special case raids. This is an optional rule. I don't know. But it seems obvious to me that Kursk and Stalingrad and most of the Battle of Britain ones just don't have a distance. And that is really unhappy. Yeah, I don't know. You know, like the question of, do I want to go look up and see if I can find errata for this? Certainly not tonight. I'm done. The question remains, does this just kill the game for me? And I say, fuck it. Because, so here's the thing. If I had any chance that I'd be playing this with someone, I'd probably try to do that eventually, you know, to try to get that information or whatever. But it seems like I won't have that opportunity ever in my life. So why don't I just say, fuck it. This game is not, you know, a fun solo game to play. It's okay. But like Attack Sub, you know, the hands of cards and everything, it's just not a good mechanism for playing solo. So, you know, all I can do is kind of try to give some of the experience of what it would be like to play it opposed. But this part is not that big a deal, right? The big part of the game is the dogfighting. So, yeah, we're probably canning this. While I was upstairs playing Raid, I pulled up the errata to see if there's anything. There are corrections. There's very, very little errata. There's a page and a half of errata. There are corrections on campaign cards. There is nothing of this sort. Nothing of this sort in the campaign book errata. Nothing of this sort in the cards errata. I'm just left flabbergasted. You know, I feel like it's an unplayable scenario, essentially, as written. And again, I can make shit up. I can come up with values. I can go look stuff up off the Rommel attacks or one of the land campaigns. and just kind of estimate. And that's pretty much where we're at this point. Is, my thinking is that nobody fucking plays the campaigns, to tell you the truth. Because otherwise this would have showed up, right? The errata hasn't been touched since 2019, though. So, whatever. All right, I think it's time to make a command decision here, and I just can't justify, after the amount of days that I've been away, partially drawn, and then found that I couldn't find, the time pieces for how far these missions are supposed to go and whatnot. To just say, screw it. When it comes down to it, these Down in Flame games, their high point is kind of as a little, short little battles that you can fight on and have a fun time with. A couple of dogfights and whatnot, at least for me. And it seems pretty clear that they did not put the effort into making the campaigns particularly enjoyable or exciting. It was the thing to try to make the game last, right? A reason to put more planes in, a reason to give you some kind of framework to play these little dogfights in. But quite honestly, I just don't feel like they add that much, especially when they lack, what I'm kind of used to. The game is about dogfighting. That is what the game is all about. And then the campaign is adding all kind of stuff that doesn't feel all that relevant to dogfighting. And it just, I don't know. The attempt to extend it, it never really hit home, and it may be why I basically gave up on the game and was willing to trade it, to sell my copy of Rise of the Luftwaffe. Was the same reasons that honestly I'm not really excited about continuing to play these. I'd feel different, I think, if I had someone who was really into the game, and between us we decided, it would be kind of cool to play the campaign and maybe play a dogfight every couple days or whatever out of that campaign and just run through it that way. It's kind of like just sort of a standard thing that happened throughout the day, throughout time, like whatever as sort of an experience that's happening through, an ongoing experience, to give some kind of skeleton to it. Because the actual dogfights don't take that long, right? I think that the kind of situation at the con was sort of the optimal way of dealing with this, where, you were able to come in and play whenever you liked to fill time. There would always be opponents available. And perhaps the most important of all, there was the campaign of that involved you actually being a pilot and getting better, right? Which is sort of the thing the game just missed all along, is there's no pilot like improvement thing. The initial campaigns didn't do much, and I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting into review stuff. That seems to be all I'm doing. I'm going to just send this up in the condition it's in, and I don't know what we'll do in terms of a review.